Welcome back. I have a few more decisive results in the 2024 Chess.com Daily Chess Championship. And yes, it took me multiple takes to say the name of that tournament without messing up. If you're not familiar with this tournament, it's one of the biggest, if not the largest tournament that Chess.com holds every year. It started with over 63,000 people on January 1st, divided into groups of 12. I won out in my first round group, and so I advanced to the second round, and here what you're seeing is my second round group of 12. I've only got one game remaining in this group, and even if I win that one, I'll end up with 11 wins, so I have no hope of advancing to the third round. But I'm going to look at the last 3 games that finished and see if I can learn something from them. If you're not familiar with my channel, I'm not a titled player or a chess coach. I'm not even that high rated. I'm just a random person trying to get better at chess. One of the ways that I do that is I analyze my games. This game was against an opponent rated nearly 1900, and no, I have never defeated anyone rated that high in any time control, with the rare exception in a daily game where somebody has timed out, and I wasn't ahead in those. So I didn't expect to win this game, but hopefully we can learn something. I'm going to click through the moves on my own with the recording paused until the eval bar jumps one way or the other and see if we can figure something out at that point. All right, it looks like neither one of us made a mistake until move 11, and here we are almost dead even, and I jumped my knight in here to c4, and the eval bar jumped and gave my opponent a 1.4, 1.5 advantage. Now I do have the lines turned off, so I don't know what I should have played. I'm going to try to guess. I don't remember for sure, but I think the reason that I hopped in here was that I didn't notice the bishop was guarding their e-pawn, and I was thinking about a fork there. Because that's what I saw just now, and then I realized, oh, the bishop's guarding that pawn. So I think maybe that's what I was heading for. I don't know why else I would have done that, because it looks really easy for them to, push their b pawn to attack the knight, and then the knight would have to go back one way or the other. One thing I probably should have been worried about is their d pawn pushing forward, because they have 4 pieces that would be protecting the d pawn if it advanced to d5. And so I would have to move this knight here on c3 to, I don't know exactly where I'd have to move it, but I would definitely have to move it. Maybe I would just, put it over here on e5. I'm not sure. But no, I cannot think of what I should have played here. So I'm going to look at the lines and see if it says queen to d7 is what I should have played. Or bishop captures f4. Those are the only 2 moves that keep us relatively close to zeros here, but the queen move, queen to d7, is the only move that keeps us at exactly 0 according to Stockfish. I don't know if it would still say 0 after I move it, and I'm going to try not to go too deep into any of the lines, but now I do have a bunch of opponents that this opponent played the English against me, and I play the English as white now, so I have seen a bunch of opponents put their queen here, and then they put their bishop here, I guess expecting me to take so they can have their queen there. And I don't take. I wait for them to take me because that bishop's defended, and then they can't put their queen on h3. And I think that's best, but I'm not 100% certain. So I don't know if that's why Stockfish is suggesting to put the queen on d7 so that I can, try this thing that so many people do against me, and it doesn't seem to work most of the time. It says if I played that, they would put their rook on f2, but I don't know why. I guess to have an extra defender on the bishop that's really well defended right now. And it says, and then I would take here on f4, take the knight with the bishop. After I put my queen here, and whatever they did, then I would play this. But then why are they evaluated differently? Why wouldn't this be better? It says that they would take back with the g-pawn. Oh, but in that case, if they took with the g-pawn, then I wouldn't put my queen on d7. Then I would put my queen on h4. Okay, so there's a slight difference there. I could still stay between +1 and -1 by moving my queen to c8, which I guess does almost the same thing as lining up with that bishop. And it says in that case, they would play rook to f2. But then I would just put my queen on d7. So I don't know why I wouldn't have done that first if that's where I wanted my queen. I just don't know why I would want my queen there. So I can't figure that out. If any of you know, let me know. I'm going to turn off the lines and go to the next place at which the eval bar jumped. Well, it was on the next move. After I put the knight here and the eval bar jumped to whatever it was, 1.4, 1.5, my opponent put their queen here, which I'm guessing is not what they should have done. They probably should have just pushed the b-pawn. No, I was, okay, pushing the b-pawn would have been all right, but it says e4 would have been better, because then I would have to put the bishop back on its home square. Well, probably not here because the knight's guarding that spot. So yeah, I guess back to c8 it would be. Okay, I think if I had been my opponent, I probably would have played b3 here, but I'm not sure why they put the queen there, because I can just put the knight back. And I left the lines on, and it looks like my next move was a mistake too, because I put it on a5 to attack the queen instead of putting it back on b6 where it came from. And that puts us over +1 for the second time in this game. Did my opponent react best to this? Says they have multiple choices, but going back to D1 is their best choice. Going to B5 is their second best. Okay, they did play their best move and went all the way back. So they're up +1 now. Let's see if it ever got any better for me. Okay, my next move was a mistake. After they put their queen back here, I played rook to B8. That was a mistake, and the eval bar shot up to +2.8, 2.6 something. And this has come up repeatedly in my last several months of analyses every time I move the rooks. 100% of the time, I don't put them where Stockfish thinks I should. That didn't used to be the case. Used to when I moved a rook, it was one of Stockfish's, preferred moves, or it wasn't that bad, but lately I thought I was putting it here to protect this pawn because they have a piece aimed at it here, and I'm not going to be able to keep the knight here. That's the thing. They're going to be able to attack that knight very quickly, probably this one first, and then it's going to have to go somewhere. Doesn't have that many places it can go right now, and then they're going to attack the other one. And so they're probably going to end up back on the 2 squares where they started from, now that I think about it. So I don't know why this was such a bad move, but I had something better. Was it putting this knight back here to keep the bishop from hitting the pawn? That's what I'm going to guess. It was putting the A knight back on C3. Sorry, C6. No, it was queen to D7 again. Just giving, okay, well, I'm not giving that pawn up yet because that pawn is currently defended. But I had to play queen to D7, only move. All right, again, if you understand why, let me know. I'm going to turn off the lines and keep going. So that's what I played. The eval bar shot up. Did my opponent take advantage of it this time? Apparently they did, because the eval bar did not jump. But it jumped when I ran away with the bishop. Okay, see, a few turns ago, it said that was their best move, and I had to play bishop to C8. But when I played bishop to C8, they got an extra half a point of evaluation. So what should I have done with it this time? Just gone partway back? Oh, no, this time I should have gone here and let the knight have it. And it says they wouldn't have taken it. They would have come after my knight. Well, I'm down +3 here, and I have no idea why. And I made what, again, a few moves ago, the engine said was the best move, but now it's 3.5. Might as well leave the lines on at this point. That my opponent pushed this pawn forward to attack my bishop, and my best move was to take that with the knight. Well, I didn't know that. It seems like that's not the best move, because I would lose the knight for a pawn. It seemed like the best move would be to get the bishop out of danger, which is what I did. Now they played b3, which was their best move. The knight has to run away. I put it on the correct square. Now they need to play d5, which, to be honest, is probably what I would have played here. Got a queen behind it, got a knight guarding that square, 2 knights, and a bishop guarding that square. We mentioned this earlier. That would leave the e-pawn temporarily undefended, but none of my pieces are attacking the e-pawn right now. So they can just move the d-pawn and then, prepare to keep going. I don't know which one would go after that. But it says after they played d5, I would need to play knight to d7. So basically all my pieces would be aiming to get back on the back rank at some point. But my opponent developed their remaining piece that had not developed yet. You might have noticed I had developed all my pieces. Well, not my queen, but my bishop had to go back. My other bishop has had to come back a little ways. And my best move now is to bring this knight back into the path of their oncoming pawn. It says that they wouldn't push it now. A second ago, that was their best move, but once they put their bishop here, now d5's not their best move. And I'm supposed to guess that and put the knight right there. I'm going to go ahead and put my knight there just for a second and then see if d5 isn't their best move. No, it isn't. Their best move is to put this knight here where I can take it, and then they'll take with the other knight, and then I will play h6, according to that line. Okay, but why isn't this their best move now? I'm going to push that pawn just to see. Now, I didn't play this, so it doesn't matter, but I've got to know why was this their best move earlier, their only move, and now it's not there at all. That would have brought us back to even, it says. How in the world would that have brought us back to even? Because I can take their e-pawn now, which that pawn's not defending anymore. Okay. I couldn't do that earlier when this knight was over here, but now that it's on c6 again. Okay, I think I get that. All right. But instead what I played was here, which I thought was an opportunity to break open their king a little bit, but that put us back, at nearly +4. Now they should play d5 because my knight's not here aiming at their e-pawn anymore. On c6, right? Because I never did play that, so now they can play d5. Okay, I do understand that. And again, it's probably what I would have played. But my opponent, who's rated nearly 1900, didn't realize that, didn't play any of those top moves, and went to directly attack my bishop, which kind of forces it to do what I moved it over there for in the first place. They're still up +3. I don't know that, of course, during the game, because we're even on material. I feel like I've been pushed back a little bit, but I'm going to trade this bishop for that knight and open up their king, right? So I did that, and they take back with the g-pawn. What about this position would indicate to me that I'm so far behind? Knight to d5 is my best move to blockade that pawn, okay. And bishop to f5 is my second best move. Okay, that's what I played. Now, I mean, I'm not really attacking the knight. The knight's, well enough defended, but I'm redeveloping my bishop. And now there's no pawn that can attack it. I think the problem that I ran into last time was that they could attack it with the e-pawn, but the e-pawn's gone on. So again, what about this position tells me that I'm down +4? And my opponent was just supposed to put this knight back here where it would attack the bishop, and then I was going to finally play queen to d7. And they wouldn't take the bishop, then they would play d5. But instead they put the knight back the other way, which gave me the huge advantage of being able to play knight to c6 again. Of course, I didn't know that. I played c6 instead. They went after my rook, and did I move my rook over? Okay. So again, why am I down? They moved their bishop up 1, which takes the advantage almost back to just +1, but only if I play knight to d5. I have to put a knight in front of that pawn. I don't know why I didn't see that. I mean, they have 2 pieces defending that square, but I have pieces defending that square too, and the other knight would still be defended. But instead I hopped in there. Wait, why did I do that? Okay, if I were evaluating this game without an engine, without the eval bar, without the lines, I would have assumed this was the mistake right here. I would have gone through this entire game not noticing any mistakes. I would have noticed a few, awkward positions or uncomfortably tight, cramped positions. But to me, this looks like a mistake. And in hindsight, I can't believe that I played it. Why would I put either one of my knights there where the pawn can just take it? Yeah, this seems like the obvious move in hindsight. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume, put it in my mind, that's where I lost the game, is right here when I just gave away a knight for a pawn. Because despite what the engine said all those times, I can't see why I was behind there. I don't have the level of chess competence to understand those, but I do understand this. I just gave away a knight. I'm going to click through the rest of the game and see if there were any other surprises, but for so far, for my intents and purposes, that's how I lost this game. Well, there was another surprise. Right here on move 25. I don't know what my opponent should have played. I'm guessing they probably should have just dropped this bishop back. Because, I'm threatening it with a pawn that's protected by the queen. So yeah, I'm guessing they should have just dropped the bishop back to a3, but instead they played a3. And again, this is a daily game, so I know it wasn't a misclick or a mouse slip. We've talked about this before. In daily games, there's the confirm move option. This person didn't get to be 1865 rated without using the confirm move option. By the time you get to a rating like that, you have figured out what the options are and you know how to play daily games. So I know they had the confirm move option. When they decided on it, they thought that was a good move. The way that option works is when you play this, it doesn't show up for me yet. It asks that player to confirm the move, and they can click X to cancel it or the green check mark to confirm it. So they saw that move on the board and confirmed it. That seems like an obvious mistake, and it seems like I should take this bishop. You can see that I'm ahead now. I'm going to go ahead and look at the lines just to make sure, because sometimes I don't understand. But yes, I should have taken the bishop. They should have taken back. And I'm up +2 point something, but only if I play knight to b2. That's it. That's the only move. And they're going to immediately move their queen up to attack my knight. But then I can put it on d3 where it will be protected by my bishop. But I made the ridiculous mistake. I'm being sarcastic. I didn't know it's ridiculous or a mistake to get my queen off the back rank, finally, so that my rooks would be connected, and then I could put a rook over here to help defend the A file or, contest the A file. But instead I had to play knight to b2 so that I could bring it out this way. Okay. Well, I do understand my opponent's mistake. They just hung a bishop for a pawn. Maybe they felt bad for me, and maybe they didn't realize that they were down -2 at that point, because it looked like the material just evened up. And in fact, that's what I thought during the game when I lost the knight for the pawn earlier, and then my opponent lost the bishop for a pawn. I thought, that's where I had gone behind, losing my knight, and that this is where we got even again. I had no idea that I was ahead here, and of course, no way of knowing that to stay ahead, I had to put my knight deep into their territory, or a one-move threat on the queen, easily escaped from, and then that I would want to put it back here. Okay. There was a little bit of another surprise here on move 29. After I finally put my queen where the engine had wanted it a long time ago, and it's +2, my opponent has the advantage again, despite us still being equal on material. My opponent brought their knight back, I assume to threaten the bishop, but the eval went to even. And I don't know if I played the best move. I do remember thinking a while about this one. I have multiple choices here, right? I can take the knight and they can take back, or they could take my queen, but then I could take the queen. You know, I could take their queen first, but then do they take the bishop? They're not going to take the bishop. Well, my queen is still existing. So if I take the queen first, they're going to take that and then I get to save the bishop. Well, let's see if I played the right move here. I took their queen, the eval bar didn't jump, and then they took my queen and the eval bar still hasn't jumped. I took their knight, the eval bar stays at zeros, and then they took my knight, and the eval bar is still at zeros. So all that mess before of me being behind +3 and then me being ahead +2 didn't matter, because for this series of moves out to move 31, we're dead even. I'm dead even with an 1860 rated player. Where did I go wrong? It wasn't that, really. I had no idea what to do, and I just played that desperation h5, but that turns out to be just fine. We're still at zeros. My opponent played their h4, and we're still at zeros. That was inaccurate. Okay, what should I have played here? That messed us up. What should I have played? I should have played rook b to c8. Oh, just put the rook on an open file? Well, I didn't do that because every time I move a rook, it's wrong. And so I was, I didn't want to do that. It says also the other rook to there would have been just fine. Wow. Okay, well, I had no way of knowing that, and again, hesitant to move my rooks because it's always wrong. So I did that, and that turned out to be bad, only if they pushed past, and they didn't push past. So it's back to even now. But I went the wrong way. I should have come king to f8, but I went and hid behind my pawn. But we're still very close to even. They put their bishop in there. I should have played rook e to challenge that. Okay. But instead I challenged their rook. Okay, so is that the move that lost me the game? I should have just got this rook off the back rank, which would have protected that pawn and allowed me to move the other rook. But wait, if I had done that, wouldn't they have just... Sorry, it doesn't say that's my best move anymore. Wait, it says if I had played here, they would have taken that pawn. I thought they would push this pawn forward to protect. Just out of curiosity, if I had played this... Wait, you're telling me that e7 wouldn't be a good move right now? Or sorry, e6? Okay, that would have been fine. We still would have been even. That's what I would have expected them to play, but the engine thinks they should just take this free pawn over here. Okay. But I didn't put my rook up there. I challenged their rook, which was a problem and may have lost me the game because... No, it didn't lose me the game. They should have taken my rook, and I would have taken their rook, and they would have been up +2. Okay. But instead they brought this rook down. I'm not sure why I had to play rook to e7 now, and I did, so we're still very close to even. And now my opponent did play e6, but that takes us dead even, zeros, only if I play rook to a8 or rook to c8. But I didn't, because I don't know what those do other than putting a rook on open file, but wouldn't that allow them to play here? Because once I move my b rook off the b file, then I'm not protecting this pawn anymore. They come down here. What, do I have to take it? And then, oh, my bishop's guarding that square. But instead I played b5. We're still below +1, and then they drop their rook back and we're at zeros again. Wait, move 37. I'm still dead even with this 1800 rated player. And I should have played g6 now. It's my only move. G6. Why? I have no idea. I played that instead, and that... Okay, was that the move that lost me the game? Probably, because they played their best move, and then I played over here. Now it's +6. They pushed this pawn. Now it's mate and 10. Okay, so it was this move that lost me the game. I had to play g6. All right, if you know why, tell me. I finally figured out why I lost the game, but I don't understand anything in this entire game. Not one thing. And it took so long, I don't have time to do the other games. That is really frustrating. Well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and look at the other two games anyway. Both of them were against the same opponent rated in the 1500s. I've also never beaten anyone rated in the 1500s in any time control, so I didn't expect to win either one of these games, and I didn't win this one, but I am going to click through and see if there was a point at which I gave up things that obviously... All right, here on move 15 appears to be my first mistake and or blunder. Through a series of inaccuracies, my opponent has gained a very slight edge, but here I brought my rook over to the e file, and now my opponent's up -2. I don't know if they took advantage of it yet because I haven't clicked through their next move yet, but what should I have played instead? They have all these pieces lined up on this pawn. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to move it forward? If I play e4 now, they still have 3 pieces lined up on that spot, and I only have 2. So if I move that forward, what's to keep them from taking it? Oh, the fact that their front piece is their queen. So if they take that, I could just take with the bishop. Okay, I'm going to guess that's what I should have played then, e4. Okay, e4 or rook to f3. Okay, but if I, okay, I got e4, I understand. Okay, well, this game was easy. It was just that one move where I should have played e4. That was it. When I instead moved my rook over to the e file, that was bad. I shouldn't put the rook on the e file. I should have played e4, and I was behind ever since, and it just got incrementally worse until this endgame, at which I knew I was lost, and I thought there was no point in continuing. Well, let's take a look at the very next game, which is against this same opponent. All right, this game against the same opponent, when I had the black pieces, it looks like it was decided by one move, just like the other one, except this time I won. But it should have been decided by a different move. I just didn't fully take advantage of that. Here, after 11 moves, my opponent already had an advantage, but here they messed up. I don't know what they should have played, but they played bishop to e2, and suddenly I have a +1 advantage, or very close to +1. And I maintained that advantage for a few moves, but eventually it got back. I don't know what they should have played here. I'm going to click on the lines just out of curiosity. They should have played f4. Okay. And it says I would have just given away my knight. But I wouldn't have. I would have run away with it. I know that about myself. Oh, I see what happens. If they play this and I run away with it, then they play e5, and that's a pawn fork of the other two pieces. Okay, so that's why this was a bad position for me. But my opponent didn't notice this tactic of being able to get the pawn fork here. So they just developed their last piece. And I didn't press this minor advantage as hard as I could have. So we got down to after move 22, where it's even. And my opponent messed up here again. I left the lines on, and it says that their best move is bishop to h5, which I guess lines up with my queen. In that case, I think pretty sure I would have taken their queen. I will just say at this point, I didn't know that it was even. I didn't know if they were ahead or I was ahead, but I wasn't sure. But I did know I did like this position that I had. I don't like how exposed my king is, but their king's not incredibly safe either. They never got to castle, or if they did, they've wandered their way back here. Their king is, kind of stuck in the middle. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think they castled queenside and ended up having to run back this way. But I don't remember for sure. I just remember I liked having my bishop in here, kind of patrolling this area. I liked the fact that I had more space here with my pawns. And I had all these pawns are going to be able to go pretty hard. But my opponent had to play here to keep us even, or queen to d6, which is over here. Not sure. Oh, that would have been a check. Okay, then I just would have gone to e7, and it says they would have gone back. Oh, and I would have gone back. Well, if we had repeated, then that would have been a draw. Well, I'm glad we didn't repeat then. Their third best move is just to go ahead and take my queen now. But they didn't want to trade queens. I think maybe they guessed that, my position is slightly stronger than theirs, and maybe that's why Stockfish gives me a really slight advantage. And because of that, they didn't want to trade queens, so they ran away. But that turned out to be the mistake that they never recovered from. And there are multiple moves, according to Stockfish, that take advantage of this. One, I could just go ahead and finally develop this knight, which looks like it hasn't moved yet. I don't know if it had and then went back. Or I could develop it over here to the h6, or I could take that undefended pawn over there. Well, that's what I did. I took the a2 pawn because I thought that would give me a little bit of a queenside majority. They need to go ahead and develop this knight, but instead they decided to challenge my pawn structure, but that just made it worse. It allows me to take their b pawn. I think if they had developed this knight, I still would have taken their b pawn, so I'm not sure why this is that much worse, but I take their b pawn and I'm up -2. Well, now they're going to take my c pawn, and they did, but then I get to take that. Sorry, my d pawn with their c pawn. But I get to take that too. So now look at this. I'm up 2 pawns, and I have centralized pieces controlling, not really long diagonals, but a decent diagonal here. And of course, this thing is controlling quite a bit of the board too. Look at all the squares my queen can see here. My queen can see quite a bit of the board from right there. And if you add in the bishop, just those two pieces are controlling a huge chunk of the board. And of course, the pawn is protecting both of those. I like that. None of their pieces have any kind of vision like those two of mine there in the middle. But I didn't know I was ahead. Again, I just knew I'm up 2 pawns and this player's rated higher than me, so I was just trying to, to hold this together was my idea. Their best move was actually to run away with the king, but they didn't. They finally did the knight move. It's actually my best move to squirt in here, it says, but instead I decided to bring my rook to the party. That turned out to not be great, but I'm still ahead. They made a half-hearted attempt to attack my queen, but that just allows me to check, and then they have to move it back. Otherwise, I'll take it, so they moved it back. A5 was one of my best moves because, I cleared off all 3 of those pawns, right? So now my a pawn can just go. There's not much they can do about it. It stayed -3 or 4 this whole time. I just, kept holding the center together and then pushing those pawns whenever I got a chance. It says, I didn't make my best move every time, but I'm staying here with a slight advantage. And what are they going to do about those pawns? Nothing, right? They tried a little, a trick here in the center, but I got another queen. So they took this pawn. Oh, it says my best move is actually to take this queen first. Okay, well, I took the rook first, thinking that they could take there, and then I didn't have to take that queen because I could just take this pawn. But of course, now they get the bishop. But if they take the bishop, then I get their bishop. It's actually their best move to take my bishop because it comes with check. But I'm still up -4. I can just block with the knight. Then they check with this over here, but now I can just move my king, which I did. The reason I didn't put my king up 1 is because I thought they could just push that pawn, and then, my knight would go for a pawn, and I'm still only up 3 points of material. So, being as careful as I can, and I did avoid getting my knight pinned by that pawn. My opponent tried to bring a bishop to the party here, but I just took that with the knight. That's a good reason to not have my king right behind the knight, because since my knight's not pinned now, my opponent's best move right now is to check me down here, protected by this knight. Of course, I would have to run away in front of my rook. I don't know exactly what they would do next, but, my king's going to be okay. Instead, they brought it in here, which threatens my knight. My best move, according to the engine, is to check. My second best move is to take this pawn here. And they're both really close. I didn't think I could save the knight. That's another thing here, too. Like, I guess I could have put the knight back. I still would have been winning there if I had put the knight back, but for some reason I thought this was better. And the reason I thought that is because this way my queen guards those 2 squares, and I'm preparing this check. And my queen's also guarding these squares. So they're going to have to be very careful if they don't want to be checkmated. Now, of course, taking my knight means that they're guarding that square down there where my rook wants to check on d1, but it's not actually their best move. Believe it or not, their best move is to check here. According to the engine, their best move is to check on e5. But they played their second best move, which was to take the knight, and I'm supposed to check on d3. I remember considering it, but instead I checked over here, and when my opponent got out of check, I saw a pretty good opportunity to trade the queens, because now they kind of have to take my queen, right? If they don't, I'm going to take theirs. So my opponent saw that, took the queen, and I took here. And now, even though a knight can put up a really good defense against a rook, I've been in that situation with a king and a rook against a king and a knight, and that's difficult, especially if that opponent is practiced with the knight. But I thought, that's not my advantage here. My advantage here is not the rook versus the knight. My advantage is these extra 2 pawns. So whatever they decided to do, I just pushed the pawn. They can take the rook if they want, and they did, but now they can't catch that other pawn. So my opponent made one move, and I pushed this pawn, and they resigned. I could be wrong, but I think this is the first time I've ever beaten, by checkmate or resignation in this case, an opponent rated over 1500 in daily chess. My memory is notoriously faulty, so it's possible I snuck one in a while back and just forgot about it, but this felt really significant to me, and that's why I wanted to go ahead and squeeze it in this video, even though I ran out of time on that first game. Hopefully you've had a game recently that made you feel good about your chess ability, or, gave you hope, a reason to keep studying, keep playing. And if not, you probably will soon. Thank you for spending your time here, and I'll see you next time.